So obviously this is about safety. I've got some scary numbers to begin with. I think the HSE and their prosecutions quote something like a 95% conviction rate and £110,000 average fine per case. So that's the average fine, and that stunned me a little bit as being the average fine. Obviously, it could be worse. You can have directors can be imprisoned, etc. But that's not as common. But certainly, fines are very common, and almost sort of a cost of business, cost of operation, really, for that people treat it as. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 5 areas where we can, or technology can help avoid those fines or dispute them. Starting with vehicle checks. Now, for most companies we work with, it's kind of a legal thing. They're meant to do a daily vehicle check on the vehicle, but historically it was done on paper. If it was done, or it never came back to the office, it wasn't filled out correctly. So people are now turning to technology to manage that better. The big benefit in technology is you can force that process, so they can't get to their jobs for the day until they've done a vehicle check. And everything's got GPS proof and photographic proof. The key thing is it's done and it's back into the office instantly from that side. So I mean, to give an example where that became useful, a company we work with, they had a guy who had a trailer in the back of his vehicle. They were driving on a country road, the trailer came loose, crashed, there was an accident, people were injured. HSE was on site within the hour, demanding to see all the records. Luckily for them, it was one of their better operatives at the time. This was when they were doing it on paper, one of their better operatives, and he'd done actually quite a thorough job with his vehicle check. So they could dispute everything and show what they'd done, but it was pure luck. It could have been, the next bloke to him, and they wouldn't have got away with it. So those guys are now using technology to manage it, to enforce that process across their user base. In a similar sense, a lot of what we end up doing is around kind of risk assessments, meta statements, site briefings. So again, most companies are doing some kind of site briefing before they start the work. And again, the good thing is you can force process with it. So you can make sure everything has to be filled in. We can force things like photos, or if you put a certain answer to a question, it can force you to fill in extra information. So we do all that. But actually, for a lot of companies, the key thing really is filled in, but is every operative on site has to sign that off. So every operative on that job has to sign off to say, and you see this kind of thing here where they've had a briefing. Now, again, I mean, to highlight an example of that, we had a couple of companies who've said, well, what they would get is regularly sort of spurious claims from these sort of dodgy sort of legal companies, where people would be maybe 2 years after working for them, come back trying to claim damages against things like hearing loss. Now, what the company could do is, because this guy had filled in his risk assessment every day and he signed it off, and they had a record of that they could pull up instantly for the last 2 years, they could successfully dispute that because they got the full records of where he signed off to say he had the full equipment. Moving away a little bit from the mobile side, because that's obviously the job completion end, but the safety side of it obviously comes a lot before that, even at the planning stage of it. And historically, a lot of companies would have a big whiteboard, probably still do, have a big whiteboard on the ceiling, and maybe rely on Big Dave, who knows, who maybe has an idea of a couple of lads might be qualified, and that doesn't wash anymore. It's absolutely crucial for all of our clients we work with, really, that they've got the correctly qualified people on site, at risk of being thrown off the job, but more seriously, obviously, injury and fines and kind of reputation in the longer term. So a lot of people are using technology now, taking what was done on the whiteboard and bringing it into more of a digital platform. So, I mean, for example, things we do here, you can say what's required for a job, but more importantly, you can see who's qualified and who's available for that job. And the benefit with that is as well, all those records can be kept in the system. They can be accessible on the mobile side. So if a site manager wants to see them, they're all accessible straight away. And a benefit as well, you can alert off it. So if something's due to expire, that can be triggering alerts off instantly. So again, remove all the training matrix and all that kind of stuff. It's just done instantly. And you don't have to think about it. It will alert you on that basis. Now, last couple, I've got a couple of kind of growth areas where we're seeing this technology being used in newer ways. So the biggest growth area we have with this sort of technology is in auditing. So it began with the sort of mobile stuff of site audits, guys going around, be able to do photos and GPS proof of the audit, that side of it. That's developed a little more now, I think, particularly in line with things like the ISO 9001 and sort of quality audits, NHSS, that type of stuff, that people are now using, once the job's been completed, using, so in our case, our web portal to do an audit on the quality of the job after the job, so from the office side. So they'll be asking questions, what was the quality of photos, was the risk assessment followed, etc. But the important bit is you can then start generating scores for jobs. which you can report with. So what a lot of companies will be doing now is running off a report for all their workers. They'll get company average, let's say company average of 70% quality. You can see down there, poor big Dave is only scoring 20% quality that month. That guy is potentially a danger because he's not following the right processes, doing things correctly. You've got all the evidence there to bring him in for training or whatever you want to term it really, but you've got the evidence at hand to show him where he's going wrong on that. And the last one I will cover is the dreaded working time directive. Now, a lot of companies I speak to, when I throw that term in, you can see a bit of panic in their eyes, and they sort of say, well, we'd rather not know, really. We just want to get the job done, which I understand. But I think particularly working time directive, the fines are unlimited. So if you've got kind of a deliberate breach of that, it's a very risky business to play, to not know who's near and who's under and all that kind of thing. So again, from a technology point of view, it's very simple from our side. So we've got, for example, in our system, we've got a report you can have on there, which will give you a nice dashboard of who's close to the limit, who's over, who's under. Does it average over 17 weeks or days? And again, that can also, which is important for a lot of people, alert. As soon as someone gets near that, that can trigger an instant alert off to a manager to let them know. So not just having to watch this all the time, you could be alerted instantly as well. So again, fairly simple to manage and implement from a technology point of view, but very powerful. So I haven't forgotten the kind of title of this was about this £500,000 saving we can give you, which is a bold statement. Going back to what we said at the start, there's a 95% conviction rate. So most of them, a large percentage of convictions, and the average was £110,000. So I've given you 5 areas there in which there's risk and it can be managed easily. 5 times £110,000 is actually a bit more than £500,000. So there you go. There's your present from me for joining. £500,000 saving for you. So thanks for joining. Hope it was useful. Obviously, I've covered that off deliberately, very quickly, so I can make the most use of your time. If you would like to talk about any of these points in a bit more detail, by all means, let us know. Happy to go through it in a bit more. If you don't know us, we are specialists in sort of mobile workforce management, particularly within people working on highways, so traffic management, fencing, barriers, all those kind of people working on site. We're specialists in helping to manage that. Thank you all for your time. Hopefully that was useful, and we'll send a video link out to everyone anyway. Thank you.